Hi, Kristin Woodson here, Customer Success Manager with DataSet. In this video, we'll walk through the Power Query Lookup command. The lookup command can be used to retrieve values from a lookup table contained in a configuration file in your DataSet account. The example we're going to use here is looking up host names from my IP addresses. This is a great example of matching against a static dataset. The data is configured from within the DataSet UI. If instead you're interested in looking up against data that's actually in your log files themselves, you can use the join command. The join command issues a SQL-style join against multiple subqueries, and it allows you to work with more dynamic data contained within your log files. We do have a separate video that covers the join command in greater depth, but again, for this example, we're going to be focusing on the lookup command. So again, what I'm looking to do is look up host names from a given IP address. To get started here, I've logged into DataSet. I am on the search page, and I want to look up just for IP addresses starting with 10.0. So I'm going to do a search with the IP field. I'm going to use the matches keyword, which will issue a regular expression search using the caret and anchor to match on the text where the beginning of the field starts with 10.0. When I run this query, I get a set of log lines back with IP addresses that begin with 10.0. So now that I have my search filter set up, I'm going to move from search to Power Queries. So I'm going to click on search, Power Queries. And if you remember from our previous videos, when you build a Power Query always starts with a filter. So when I move from my search page to the Power Query page, you'll notice it preserves the filters that I have there. So the optimal workflow is to start on the search page like we did, use the filters there to narrow down the log lines that you're interested in, and then jump into the Power Queries page and we can continue from here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to group by IP address, and I'm going to create another column here called requests, which contains a count of the number of log lines per IP address. So we're just going to do our group command here. And we're going to do, again, that new column called requests and count by my IP address field. So when I run that, you can see I have my nice table showing me how many requests I've got for IP addresses. However, what I'd like to do is use a lookup command to map from IP address to host name. So the data tables are stored under the config files. So I'm going to navigate here to my config files located on the menu on the right-hand side in the UI. And when I go to my config file section, you can see on my demo account here, I have several data tables. Just going to type in DataTables, and we're going to click into my host name. So I can create any number of data tables in the DataTables directory. In my case, you can see my data table here is called host names, and inside this table I have a JSON statement describing a table with 2 columns. I can have more columns if I want. I just have to be consistent. In this case, I have a set of IP addresses mapped to host names. So to take advantage of this data table, I can use the lookup command. So what I'm going to do is look up from host name. So again, my configuration file name is data table host names. So I'm going to reference the host names data table when we get back to that Power Query. So let's go back into our Power Query. So what I'm going to do is look up from host names. So again, my configuration file is named data table host names. So I'm going to reference my host names here when we're going to be looking up. I want to create a new column called host, which is going to equal the host name. And we're looking that up from that data table called host names. And I'm going to map it by looking at the IP address column that's in my data table and mapping it against the IP value that's in my original Power Query. So now that I've run this, I get a new column called host. It's just a point of reference here, and I could just look up the host name and then I'd be given a column called host name. But as it is, I wanted to rename the column to host, which is what I've done. I've now enriched my data. I've got the host names, the corresponding IP addresses, and as a finishing touch here, let's say I just want to put the columns in a different order. So what I've done here is I've now reordered so that I have my column IP, host, and requests. And this is a simple example of using the lookup command to map from IP address to host name. I hope you found this video helpful. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions at support@dataset.com. Thank you for watching.